I've always been afraid of doctors. Not in the usual way, but in the way you fear something that can smile while hurting you. Still, when the pain in my neck got worse, I turned to someone I thought I could trust. Someone I'd known since high school. He was a neurosurgeon now. Confident, respected, maybe even admired. But the moment I woke up from surgery and couldn't move my body, I knew something was wrong. Deeply wrong. What really happened in that operating room? If you think you know this story, think again. Because what I survived was far worse than anyone could imagine. But before we start, don't forget to hit subscribe or follow so you'll never miss a spine-tingling episode. If you're enjoying our content, please give us a like, drop a comment, and share this video to help us reach 100 likes. Every like brings us one step closer to the next terrifying episode. And if you want even more creepy content, follow us on our social media platforms for the latest updates. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. And now, let's dive into the darkness together. My name is Jerry Summers, and I used to be someone you might have described as a thrill seeker. I lived for adventure, motorcycles, skydiving, hiking rough trails, anything that gave me a rush. I was strong, healthy, and almost stupidly fearless. That was until 2011, when a dull ache started building in the back of my neck. At first, I ignored it. I thought I had just slept wrong or strained a muscle lifting something too heavy. But it didn't go away. Over weeks, the pain worsened. It radiated down my arms, and I'd lose feeling in my hands. Sometimes it got so bad, I'd have to lie down in the middle of the day just to breathe through it. Eventually, I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I reached out to someone I'd known since high school, Chris Dunch. We were more than just old classmates. We were tight back in the day, real friends. I remembered him as the guy who was always talking about doing big things. He went off to become a neurosurgeon, and by all accounts, he'd made it. Now he had a shiny new practice in Dallas, and people were calling him a rising star in spinal surgery. When I told him about the pain, he didn't hesitate. "Come see me," he said. "We'll fix you up." I felt lucky. I wasn't just getting a surgeon, I was getting my friend, someone I trusted with my life. I visited him at his clinic. It was clean, modern. Everyone there seemed to respect him, maybe even fear him a little. He carried himself with a weird kind of confidence, charming, cocky, even when talking about complicated procedures like he was reading a recipe off a cereal box. He reviewed my scans and told me I had herniated discs in my cervical spine. He recommended a cervical fusion surgery. "It's routine," he said, grinning. "You'll be back on your feet in no time. You'll thank me." Looking back now, I wonder how many people heard those same words. I went in for surgery in early 2012, fully believing I was making the right choice. My parents were nervous, but I reassured them. "It's Chris," I said. "I trust him." The next thing I remember is waking up in the ICU, unable to move. My arms wouldn't lift, my legs wouldn't twitch. I couldn't sit up, roll over, even scratch my face. I thought it was temporary. The anesthesia, maybe. Nerve swelling. I asked what was happening and nobody would give me a straight answer. Nurses kept checking my vitals. The look in my parents' eyes, I'll never forget it. Like someone had just handed them my death sentence. I had spinal cord damage, permanent. I was paralyzed from the neck down. At first, I didn't want to believe Chris had done anything wrong. He came in and told me it was a complication. He said my body had reacted badly, that things like this happen sometimes. I nodded, even thanked him for trying. That's how deep the trust ran. But then the stories started coming out. Another patient of his, a woman named Kelly, had lost almost all mobility in her left side. Another man bled out internally during a routine procedure. A woman came in for minor back pain and left in a wheelchair. And then someone died on his table. Chris was operating like a drunk mechanic, except this wasn't a car, it was people's lives. What's worse, the hospitals knew. There were complaints. Nurses had filed incident reports. One doctor even walked out of an operation mid-surgery because Chris was so erratic. but the system failed us. Hospitals let him resign instead of reporting him, just passed the problem on like a hot potato. Nobody wanted the liability. I was one of over 30 victims. It wasn't until a 74-year-old woman named Mary Efford went in for surgery and came out in even worse shape than me, unable to move, unable to speak, that the Texas Medical Board finally pulled his license. But by then, the damage had been done. Bodies were broken, lives ended, families were torn apart, all because one man, someone who had once been my best friend, treated the human spine like it was a puzzle he could play with. Years later, he was convicted of maiming one of his patients intentionally. The prosecution painted him as a man who knew exactly what he was doing. They called him dangerous, reckless, even sociopathic. He was sentenced to life in prison. It wasn't enough, not for what he took from so many of us, but it was something. As for me, I've spent the last decade learning how to live in a body that won't obey me. I need assistance for nearly everything: feeding, dressing, bathing. I've battled infections, depression, days when I didn't want to keep going. But I have a support system. People who didn't give up on me. I try to remind myself, I'm still here. I survived. Others didn't. But the scar Chris left on me, it's more than just physical. It's a betrayal that cut to the bone. My name is Maria Cruz, and I used to live a life that moved fast. I was 35, working as an investment banker in New York City. Deadlines, meetings, international flights, that was my world. I loved the pace, the pressure, the adrenaline. But even in a high-speed life like mine, there were things you couldn't ignore forever. One of them was my skin. It started as a small flare-up. I thought it was just stress. The occasional breakout, dryness around the eyes, red patches that would fade in a few days. But it kept coming back, and worse. No matter what I tried, pharmacy creams, herbal remedies, even switching diets, nothing helped. Eventually, I couldn't cover it up with makeup anymore. People began to notice. My confidence started to crack. A friend of mine, someone in my industry whose appearance always seemed airbrushed, told me about a dermatologist named Dr. Damian Vale. He's amazing, she said. Completely private clinic in Manhattan. Super discreet. You'll love him. When I Googled him, I didn't find much. Just a few scattered online mentions, no social media, no flashy marketing. But that actually made me trust him more. Like he didn't need the hype. I made an appointment. The clinic was in Midtown, tucked inside a pristine brownstone with mirrored windows. Inside, it was spotless. Glass surfaces, polished marble floors, soft instrumental music playing low in the background. It felt exclusive, almost spa-like. A receptionist greeted me without asking for insurance, which I thought was unusual, but she assured me everything was handled privately. Dr. Vale prefers not to go through insurers, she said. Keeps things simpler. When Dr. Vale came into the room, I immediately understood why people raved about him. He was probably in his early 40s, tall, clean-shaven, with sharp cheekbones and calm, confident eyes. His voice was low and smooth, like a radio host. He smiled warmly, asked about my background, my job, even complimented my handbag. The kind of small talk that instantly puts you at ease. I remember thinking, finally, a doctor who sees me as a person, not just a chart. He examined my face with quiet intensity and told me it looked like a stubborn form of rosacea. Not serious, he said, but persistent. The best approach is a quick laser treatment. I'll combine it with a local anesthetic to keep you comfortable. I hesitated for a moment. It felt fast. But his demeanor reassured me. He even walked me through the procedure, using medical terms I didn't fully understand, but his tone made them sound harmless. Besides, I'd already missed enough work because of my skin. I just wanted it gone. He had me lie back in a sleek, reclined chair in the treatment room. The overhead light was bright, and soft jazz played from a speaker in the corner. He explained that I might feel a bit of warmth, and then he injected the anesthetic. It was a cold prick at first. Then a strange numbness began to wash over my face. I remember blinking, trying to ask something, but the words stuck in my throat. Then came the dizziness. The room started tilting slightly. My arms felt heavy. I tried to raise my hand, but it wouldn't move. My heart began pounding. Not from fear at first, just confusion. I tried again to speak. Nothing came out. I felt a searing sensation across my chest, like my lungs were folding in on themselves. Panic surged. I was trapped in my own body, fully conscious, but unable to scream. Dr. Vale stood over me, his face suddenly unreadable. I watched him check my pulse. I could see concern flicker across his features. Not the calm, collected confidence from earlier, but something more primal. Fear. The last thing I remember seeing was his hand reaching for his phone, and then nothing. I wish I could tell you what happened next, but the truth is, I didn't wake up. Not in that room. Not anywhere. I only know the rest because people pieced it together. My family, the police, investigators. It took months before they found me. I had just disappeared. My phone was off. My last appointment was never officially logged. The clinic shut down the week after my visit. My parents filed missing persons reports. Friends at work assumed I had taken a break or burned out. A few even thought I'd run away. Absurd. That wasn't me. I didn't vanish. Eventually, a local reporter dug into Dr. Damien Vale's background and discovered something chilling. He was never licensed to practice medicine. Not in New York, not anywhere. The clinic was leased under a shell corporation. He had forged credentials, stolen identities. There were no official patient records, no oversight, nothing. When authorities finally searched his property, they found a shallow burial beneath the concrete floor of his detached garage in Queens. It was me. They concluded that the lidocaine he used had been administered in a dangerously high dose. My heart had slowed, then stopped. Instead of calling for help, instead of doing what a real doctor would have done, he panicked. He wrapped my body, transported it in his own vehicle, and buried me like trash. He didn't confess, but the evidence spoke for itself. My story was on the news for a few weeks. Then came the think pieces. How could this happen? Who regulates cosmetic clinics? What signs did we miss? But by then, I was just a name, a face on a flyer. If there's anything to take from what happened to me, let it be this. Sometimes the most polished surface hides the darkest rot. Not every monster wears a mask. Some wear lab coats. I was just 10 years old when I first met Dr. Ramsey. It was a typical afternoon after school in my quiet suburban neighborhood. I was waiting outside the gates, hoping to catch the bus home when a man in a white coat approached me. He had a gentle smile and kind eyes that seemed to look right through me. He introduced himself as Dr. Ramsey, a pediatrician who had just moved into the area. He seemed so friendly, almost like one of those nice adults you hear about who genuinely care about kids. He carried a small bag of candy and offered me some with a warm, reassuring voice. "Here, these are safe. Just a little treat." I remember hesitating, but he insisted with a smile so convincing I didn't feel scared. We talked for a few minutes about school and my favorite cartoons. It felt like meeting someone who actually wanted to listen. That day, he left me with a small toy, something I treasured for weeks. At first, I thought it was harmless, maybe even a little lucky, having a doctor nearby who seemed to care. But things started to change quickly. Dr. Ramsey began appearing everywhere I went. Sometimes I'd see him waiting near the school entrance early in the morning, other times at the park when I went with my friends after classes. Once, he showed up at the grocery store just as I was walking out with my mom. It was like he knew my schedule. When I saw him, he always waved with the same unnerving smile, his eyes piercing and unreadable. He tried to talk to me sometimes, but his words didn't quite feel right, like he was rehearsing what to say next. The more he showed up, the more uneasy I became. I tried to avoid him, walking different routes or staying closer to groups of kids, but somehow he always found me. It wasn't just coincidence. I remember one afternoon when I was playing soccer with my classmates in the park, and he appeared at the edge of the field, watching me intently. His smile was wider than usual, almost predatory. I started feeling scared, but I didn't know how to explain it. The grown-ups around me didn't notice at first. When I finally told my parents about Dr. Ramsey, I was trembling. I remember the exact words. "There's a man who keeps following me. He says he's a doctor, but he's always watching me, and it makes me scared." My parents were alarmed. They contacted the local police and school authorities, hoping they could do something. The school sent out warnings to other parents, and the police tried to keep an eye out for the man. But Dr. Ramsey was always one step ahead. Just as they were about to confront him, he would vanish, like a ghost. There were rumors among the kids, stories about a creepy man who pretended to be a doctor but wasn't. Some said he tried to lure children into his car. Others whispered about strange noises near his supposed clinic, which turned out to be an abandoned building. No one ever caught him, though. Despite the police presence, my parents made me stay indoors more often. I stopped going to the park, stopped walking to school alone. Every shadow felt like him. I lost friends because I was too scared to hang out outside. Years passed, but the memory of Dr. Ramsey never faded. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I swear I can see his face in the darkness. That unsettling smile. Those cold eyes watching from the edge of my vision. I never found out who he really was, or what he wanted. The police never uncovered his true identity or found any evidence of where he lived. The clinic he claimed to work at was fake. The license he showed me was a forgery. It was as if he existed only to haunt me. Now, as an adult, I understand a bit more about predators and the kinds of evil people hide behind smiles and white coats. But the fear he planted in me lingers. Sometimes, I wonder if he's still out there somewhere, waiting for the next kid to trust him. If you ever find a stranger who seems too interested in you, who tries to gain your trust in a way that feels off, trust your gut. Not every doctor is what they seem, and sometimes the scariest monsters wear the kindest masks. If you've made it to the end of this video, let me know in the comments which story creeped you out the most. And if you could survive only one of these stories, which one would it be? Also, drop "I made it" and mention our channel in the comments below. I want to know who my loyal followers are so I can give you a shout out in our next videos. And lastly, if you've experienced a terrifying encounter or have a horror story to share, send it to us on Reddit. And if you want to support the channel and help us create even more spine-chilling content, check out our Patreon or Ko-Fi. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to like and share the video, and now, stay tuned for our next horror episode.